Hello, and welcome back to another episode of the Lore Gremlin Podcast. I am your host, So Peachy, the cryptid enthusiast.
I'm MD, a lore goblin.
And today, as you can tell, is a little bit different. We're going to be delving into the universe and world of SparkVoices. We usually do, siren stuff, but we wanted to change it up a bit because she does do a series that does involve Siren's lore, but that's not what we're going to talk about today. We're going to talk about her own personal lore and stories. More specifically, delving into the world of Varia, the continent of Floss, focusing on three main characters being our vampire gals, Dahlia, Egret, and Yewen.
Yewen scares me.
Yeah, clearly. If you're not scared of Yewen, I'm concerned.
Yeah. So I guess we'll start with general vampire lore. What we have on general. Oh my gosh, general vampire lore. There's storylines a bit not new, but there's not a whole lot, but we have enough to kind of just give a general background. So Vampire Society is a bit kind of separated from the rest of Varia. We're not really sure how vampires started, but there is a definite kind of they struggle to get along, and they value social status, which is determined by pure blood percentage levels. 100% pure bloods are a dying breed, and so mixing houses is a tricky situation, because they want to keep the lines going.
Yeah, they want the cream of the crop,
Yeah. So you're considered a noble if you have like a minimum of 70 to 80% blood purity. It's a bit confusing. And you have the ability to inherit a power if you have 95% blood purity or higher. Don't ask us how we know that, or not. Don't ask how we know that. Don't ask how that's determined. We don't know.
We don't know the
Hopefully
science
we'll find
behind
out.
it. Yeah.
I would love to learn, because I'm like, how do you know that someone has 72% blood and they're, oh yeah, I'm sorry, you can't be a noble. Like, how do you know?
You have to get out a family tree and you connect the dots and you're like, okay, based on this math.
You have to be like at least 68% or whatever. Like, okay, yeah, it's a whole thing. So yeah, noble houses, or noble vampire houses. So great with the English today, guys. So noble houses are tasked with ruling and keeping lower class vampires in check, though the number of lower class vampires, largely outnumber the number of nobles. The noble house focused really on this series. The one that really has a name that I think we've heard is House White, led by Lady Lillian White, who we haven't met yet. She got her castle from a human noble that was descended from a line of vampire hunters, so ironic. The house is kind of unique to others in that it hires human servants and, helps them out because, human servants can go out in the day and get more things done. Lady White has 3 daughters, Egret, Yewen, and Dalia. They're all adopted, even though she's capable of having, biological
Her own, apparently,
children.
yeah.
Egret is the only turned vampire, and she is the next head of the house. We're going to go into that a little more later. Turned vampires don't have such a great reputation. They're kind of seen by born vampires as wild and dangerous because they've been known to kill their makers in their frenzy if they're even able to survive the transformation. Some of them go mad. So, yeah, some kind of traits of turned vampires are heightened senses, overwhelming feeling of power and hunger. They're able to go into the sun. Their eyes don't change color when they're feeding, so you can kind of just tell by looking at them. They don't have the same weaknesses as pureblood vampires due to their lingering humanity, but we don't really know what
that means.
What that means. We haven't heard anything yet. Yeah, and Egret is the only turned one to survive and not succumb to those traits. So, I'm wondering what makes her so different.
Why is she so special? So since we just talked about Egret a little bit, might as well delve into her storyline and who she is as a character. So as was stated previously, she's the only turned vampire in her family, betrothed to a vampire listener who is a noble, of course, considering she's going to be next in line to take care of Castle White. And her personality type, she's very cold and calculated, very focused on being like the best heir possible with all of her circumstances. She's more focused on diplomatic affairs within the vampire community. She's, has differing views about humans than, like, Dahlia, who we'll talk about later, who's very, friendly with humans. Meanwhile, Egret's kind of just like, I guess they're useful, but like, which is weird considering she was a human at one point.
Yeah.
While the others weren't. So it's just interesting.
It's a weird thing because you're like, I guess, she was raised by vampires. So, like, I guess not having that experience, like growing up with humans, you would be like, oh, it's kind of weird. But also, like, you were, I'm sure, like, considered, like, you were treated differently by vampires growing up. So, like, you would understand the plight, I guess, of, like, of human beings. I guess in terms of, like, why they would be afraid of vampires or, like, being treated differently by vampires.
Yeah.
So, like, the fact that she's so, like, kind of moved herself from, like, the people that she used to be part of is, like, weird.
So now kind of like a rundown of like what happened in her series thus far. In part 1, it starts off with us, the listener, heading to Castle White, to finally meet our betrothed Egret. She's very cold, very like direct with her introduction. She's just like, yeah, this is me, we're gonna be married, cool. And then
it's like a business deal or something.
Yeah,
business
it's very
deal.
much like that. I mean, that's basically how it was, set up. Like she said, I don't know if it was in part 1 or part 2, but she was talking about how, like, her mother, Lillian White, was the one who selected, options for her and was like, okay, here are your options. And thankfully, Egret was able to have options. It's not like, Lillian was like, this is the only person I'll allow. She gave her a selection. So I feel like that's pretty interesting and nice. Yeah. So far, she seems like a good mom. We haven't gotten any bad vibes. Well, suspicious vibes, but
suspicious vibes, but
not
like
bad. Not evil intent, But yeah, so we arrive at the manor, introductions. She decides, she's like, I'm gonna call you dearest because people need to think that we're, happily betrothed just to keep up the image of everything.
If it's arranged, though, and people know it's arranged, then what?
Yeah.
Like, why?
Why put up that facade? Yeah.
I don't understand.
It's interesting, just like how she acts is very odd, I suppose. So yeah, she gives us a tour of the castle, tells us the story about how her mom got the castle, as we said previously. Shows us the library where we've been made a personal study. Since we are so fond of literature, as we said through our letters, which apparently they corresponded via letters previous to, meeting face to face finally. So she doesn't, at least we know each other somewhat. We're not completely estranged from Egret in terms of, like, knowing her. Basically, she's just like, yeah, I have these sisters, younger sister being Dalia, and then, second youngest being Yewen, and how they're very different from her, how, Dahlia's a bit more eccentric and odd, and Yewen is just, well, going around being a pirate lady.
Oh, that Dahlia's the weird one, and Yewen's just out straight up killing people. She's the quirky one. She likes humans.
She's nice. But, Egret sees, like, the potential of having that because, because of Dahlia, they don't have to worry about hunters or a revolt from, like, the human settlement that's within their boundaries. So she's like, I guess it's useful, but I'm not that big of a fan of, humans and whatnot. They keep their distance, I'm good.
Don't come near me.
And then at the end of that episode, she goes off to investigate, Dahlia's return, which, we'll bring up when we talk about part 2 of hers. So then, after that, finally we have the first dinner with Egret, which is where we basically learn more about Egret. This is where she finally tells us that she was turned, and when you're first listening to it, you're like, oh, okay, whatever, you're turned. But then you figure out that, like, oh, being turned is not just a normal thing. It's not just something that happens every day. It's like they have rules about it in the vampire society where it's like only a select few can do this. The only reason, like, Lillian White was able to do this was because she's, one of the few pure blood, vampires left. So no one can really, like, tell her not to do it.
I can do what I want, and you can't stop me.
Pretty much, yeah.
Actually.
And it's like the circumstances from which she was turned is a bit odd because she just mentions that, like, Lillian White decided to raise, this human child with no memory, which I don't know if that is because of being turned or she had no memory previous to being turned. And then she mentions how, like, there was a situation after the incident which required me to change, which we don't really know what that means, but clearly something happened to her that required her to be turned by Lillian White, and clearly Lillian has some reasonings for this. You don't just go turning random, people. I feel she feels more calculated than that, so there's definitely a reason as to why she did it.
Yeah, and especially with, like, what has happened with every other scenario, right? Like, they kill their makers, they go crazy, so her turning had to be something really important.
And because she's turned, like we said earlier, how she's not, like, affected by the sun and all that jazz. So a lot of other vampires definitely don't view her in, like, the best way. They don't treat her as well. They won't say anything, like, to her face, but, like, they'll, chit chat behind her back about how, like, she doesn't deserve to be a noble like us because she's turned like a wild animal, those. That's how they treat it. That's basically how she made it sound, where they're like, "Oh, yeah, I'm mightier than thou because I'm pure-blooded, or I was born a vampire, but you were turned." And it's like, whatever,
We're over it.
Yeah. But for that reason, the fact that she was turned and was able to, like, push through it and maintain herself and not go crazy, people fear her in a sense because it's not normal for someone to be turned and end up okay in the end, because practically all cases beforehand were not good, especially being turned by, like, a pure blood like Lillian, because like she was saying how, like, oh, even being turned by, like, just a lower class a vampire can make someone go mad. So just, like, imagine what would happen to someone who is turned by, like,
one of the probably most powerful people
in
that society.
Yeah. So she talks about that, and then she talks about how other nobles don't really like her, and of course us as the listener, we're like, oh, you're so strong and beautiful. And she's like, oh, thank you, I guess.
Oh my gosh, you're so strong for going through what you did.
Basically. But then I like how she was like, oh, don't interrupt me while I'm talking. And I was just
like, I'm sorry.
Like, wow. Sorry, I just wanted to compliment you, but okay.
I was trying to be nice, but I guess not.
Yeah. Like, okay, I won't interrupt you. I'm sorry, ma'am. And then after that, she's like, well, I hope, my sisters can find someone just as well as you. And I'm like, okay.
Well, I like this poor person. It's just like, oh, I guess we're gonna be weird. We're gonna be married, but also weird acquaintances. It's like that person you see at a party that you've talked to a few times, but like you don't know enough about each other to, like, every time there's a lull in the conversation, it just gets really awkward.
Yeah.
And you're just like, well, I guess, like, I could learn, like, and they're just not about it. Like, they're just not trying to know more about you. They're not trying to progress the conversation. This is her. This is that awkward friend, that weird acquaintance.
Yeah, but it seems like Egret is willing to, like, well, kind of open up because talking about this obviously is very big. But then also, she mentions how like, well, if you need to talk, please talk to me because we are going to be married, so we should have this work. Essentially, very cold, but it has good meaning behind it at least.
Yeah, I'm excited to get her to warm up a bit.
And then towards the end, she's talking about like, oh, I hope my sisters find someone just as well. And then she mentions that Dahlia has been in a pre-standing arrangement since birth, which is, is going to happen soon of that. I don't know what that means, whether that means like she's gonna, be betrothed to someone or something else.
That should be that
We'll
guy.
talk about that in theories, but yeah, that guy. You know how I feel about him.
Hate that guy.
I have strong feelings. We'll get on to that soon.
Conflicting feelings.
And then she talks about like Yewen probably won't get married because he's just off being a pirate, basically. I mean, so she's also, like, Yewen's gonna do her own thing, but
like also we've met her. I mean, I can't imagine a vampire noble. I mean, this one's already shook by like the fact that there are humans, right? Mm-hmm. Like this girl is going out like and just taking over the entire sea. And, like slaughtering people for a century. Oh, I guess we'll go into this more. Sorry, I'm like getting ahead of myself.
I mean, it's good. I mean, but Yewen is kind of, well, I don't want to say she's the norm of vampires, but her opinion of humans, at least, where she's like, normal. We don't like humans. So it's like, if that's the case, I'm just scared to meet any other vampires, because
I know. Oh my god.
So that's basically everything we know about Egret and her storyline so far. Next up, we have Yewen, the second eldest. We meet her when she attacks our ship and all that jazz. It was quite an interesting, I just wasn't expecting.
You hear the crew getting brutally murdered.
Yep, all that jazz. I mean, before they're attacked, we're talking to our first mate, who is voiced by Siren, who we later learn might be the brother of Vivian. But, that's
if you don't know who that is, go listen to Spark's stuff.
Yeah. And links in the description. And, so yeah, we're talking to the first mate. The first mate is basically like, the crew's nervous about this whole Ghost of the North thing. I think we should, like, find another way. But we're very stubborn, and we're like, nah, we need to just go through here because this is our only option.
Can we take a moment to just talk about how stupid our listener is for Yewen? I'm sorry. I think at one point, Siren's character slaps us, and I was like...
Yes.
I was like, I'm sorry, what? And it happens, like, twice in that audio,
yeah, because the first time we freeze up when, like, the fog sets in.
Yeah.
And Siren's character is basically like, yo, get your, stuff together. We need to, like, figure this out.
Much better captain than we are. Because how do you, as a captain, freeze during battle? Don't you need experience to become a captain?
Yeah. Especially, you're a pirate, for goodness sake. If anything, you should be bolder than everyone. But,
Like, I just don't. And then, yeah.
But then, yeah, we hear people dying in the background, casually. And then, Siren's character, whose name I just remembered is Caspian. So Caspian, basically knocks us out and then jumps overboard. So he's potentially safe. Well, he's in frigid northern water, but he might be alive.
He'll be alright. If, he is Vivian's brother, then they're what's it called? Not
they're hardy people.
No, I was resilient. They're resilient. Words are weird.
Oh god. Yeah. So that happens. We wake up. Then you just hear Yewen laughing at us and calling us a sea rat, and just basically being like, what are you doing in my hunting grounds and whatnot? And she's being all high and mighty and. Why you up in my space? And I'm just like, I don't know.
I'm sorry.
I'm just trying to get across, okay? Yeah. Then she knocks us out. So we definitely have like a head injury, probably.
They have no. I think the reason why they are the way they are is because they have so many head injuries. People are just hitting them too much. Have a concussion for sure.
Yeah. So get knocked out again by her, and then Yewen basically tells her, first mate, which is Castor, another vampire, who's probably like maybe a lower vampire. We don't know that much about him, but and basically just is like, put them on my ship and let's go, because I have to question them. And then we go to part 2, where we get down to like the whole interrogation. Ewan's like, oh, you're awake, finally. So what's up, Sea Rat? And I'm like, is this gonna be our nickname? Am I just gonna be Sea Rat?
We deserve it, probably.
For being this stupid.
Honestly, like, sorry if y'all like that, listener. This is a lot like with Siren's character, Paul, and his listener, Weirdo. It's such a fitting nickname, because honestly, they're active.
You just gotta accept it,
Yeah. It's just,
accept the title.
Yeah. Some listeners aren't, I don't want to say main character vibes, but they're not perfect. They're weird and dumb.
So, we wake up, Ewan's like, you must have been an explorer because you had maps in your cabin, but you're also a pirate, so like I can't trust you. And we're just staying silent because we don't want to respond, which I don't think we have the right to be so sassy in that moment.
She could kill us. I don't like. Yes. He just killed however many people, and it was nothing.
Yeah. So then after that, she's like, all right, let's, I ask you a question, you ask me a question. So they do that back and forth, and we find out that she is the ghost of the North, and we don't really know what that means in particular, but we just know she is the ghost of the North. And we apparently were trying to escape from, like, some royal guards or something like that. Yeah, the Royal Navy.
Yeah.
Yeah. But why we were trying to escape them is still unclear. I feel like there's more to it than just like, we're pirates trying to not get caught by the Navy.
Yeah.
I feel like there's definitely more to it that we're not speaking of. And then she's like, all right, I got my answers. And then we're like, so, what you gonna do with us? Are we gonna be okay? And she's like, oh, you're now my Capri Sun. You are my personal blood bag, basically. And I'm just like, dandy.
That's my new favorite name. Ewan's Capri Sun.
Ewan's Capri Sun. Yeah. Anytime she's feeling the urge for a thirst, we're right there.
Sounds so bad. Oh, she'd probably say that too.
Yep. So that's basically it for Yewen. She's crazy and scary, and we are now her blood bag.
Her Capri Sun.
Her Capri Sun. That's a new nickname. We're not Sea Rat, we're Capri Sun.
We reject Sea Rat. It's Capri Sun or nothing. Sorry, Spark.
Okay. So then finally we get to my favorite character. So it's Dahlia, of course, the youngest and newest member of the family. She's the nice one, the one that everybody likes, because it's Dahlia, so who wouldn't like her? I might be biased, but whatever.
A little, but it's okay.
Just a little bit. So she's got 3 parts because she's special.
Peachy is so excited.
I am. She's one of my favorites.
She should be.
And if anything happens to her, I'm gonna be so mad.
No, don't say that. Don't give
Spark
people
ideas. They were already talking about it in the lore chats and stuff. They were like,
it doesn't matter.
Can you imagine? And I was like, no, don't
put that energy out there.
Okay, so part 1, Dalia is escaping from the Peace Ball, which is more talked about in Violette's series, which we'll talk about at another time. But just so you know, it's this big event that everybody in Varia knows about. It's like a very famous event. So she's escaping because it got attacked, and she's riding a carriage that was given to her by Lady Grey, another noble, seemingly human noble. So she was very nice, and gave her the carriage, so she's running away. And then along the way, we're basically in the middle of the road,
Kind of
dying,
dying.
and
No big deal.
and she's like, oh no, I must save this human. So, she picks us up like we're nothing, and then she wraps us in her shawl, and she's like, hello, you're mine now.
You're my friend now.
She takes us with her. She's like, I'm gonna call you Sunflower because I can't go in the sun. So
I think she does kind of treat us like a pet.
A little bit.
Arbus is completely right in that. Like, oh, you're kind of a pet to her. Like, oh, I'm gonna take you home and I'm gonna feed you and I'm gonna make you feel better.
All that stuff is like, oh my god.
Like, I am a
But
full
also, like,
person.
but there's like the part of me that's like, I want to be cared for like that.
We all want to be secretly.
Yeah. So then she talks a little about, her home, and she's like, yeah, I'm Dahlia of House White, the youngest of three. And I've got a sister Yewen who is Yewen, and I have a sister Egret who's like the head honcho of House White.
Says those
Can you
exact
imagine
words.
if she spoke?
She says those exact words.
I don't. That was the only word that came to mind, and I was just like, "Yep, head honcho."
Y'all don't even need to listen to the video anymore. Those are her exact. Basically it.
And then after she's talking for a bit about herself and whatnot, we finally notice that she has fangs, which I'm just like,
we are also like half
okay.
dead, so
yeah.
I mean,
so I'll give us some slack.
no,
cut us some slack.
If it was Capri's son, they wouldn't notice. She'd have to tell
They
them
wouldn't
outright.
notice. And she's like, "Oh, but don't worry, you're fine with me. I'm not like that. I'm not like other vampires."
I'm not like other vampire girls.
Yeah. She's like, "It's fine. I'll take you home. I've got a really good doctor. They'll patch you up. It'll be all good. So, rest in here till we get there." So finally, part 2, they arrive at Castle White. Apparently, this is when Egret's betrothed is around, so it's like, oh, okay, we're in the clear. We can like sneak you in without having to deal with anything. So like we're snuck in and stuff, and obviously in the end Egret's like, "Hey, I know you're here. Clean yourself up and just don't get in my face."
It's like, you do anything I don't like, I will eat you. Which is terrifying.
Yeah. And she says something specific like, not a thing transpires in this house that I'm not aware of. Which is very like, ooh, intimidating.
You have a weird connection to this house. Weird attachment issues.
But probably because she has to be like, this really,
house,
in charge
basically.
lady. It's her house. She's got to do everything. But Lillian White is still around, but she's just kind of doing her own thing.
Is she even like in the house? We don't know where she is.
I think she's probably doing, political things.
She got bigger fish to fry.
Yeah, pretty much. She's like, Egret, can you, it's like, when you leave the kids at home and you ask the eldest, to like,
yeah.
Hey, can you watch the house and make sure that I don't come back to it on fire? Yeah.
Egret would totally be the kid where she's like, I got mom on speed dial. Don't mess with me.
Meanwhile, Yewen's there with like a match or a lighter, and she's like, I'm ready.
You think I care is the problem. That was your first mistake.
So that was part 2. And then in part 3, we're finally going to see the doctor. Nightfall has come. We're having to go, well, it's almost night, so we're having to go through some kind of like underground system to get to the doctors, which is secret tunnel.
I was thinking that.
It was on point, yeah. Mm-hmm. So takes us to the doctor. We meet the doctor, who is I think is a human based on context clues, and basically tells us, yeah, so your bone in your leg healed wrong, so you're not going to be able to walk normally anymore, And I'm like, oh, great.
That's nice.
Stuck in a castle with vampires and I cannot run.
That's so
lovely.
And then, no, but also, Dahlia's like, and she's like, well, it could heal back if you break it again and you set it. And Dahlia's like, that's too painful for me. I
She's
don't
like,
want
it's
to
not
do
an
it for them.
option. She's like, I don't want to watch them
I was
in
like,
pain. I'm
why
like,
are you making
can
my
I get an
medical
option?
decisions? What is this?
Wow, that is very much treating us like a pet, huh?
Exactly. That's like, oh, your dog is, well, I'm not even gonna make that comparison, but like, do we not have a this is our body.
Yes.
You're just make the executive decision for me. When I live in a house with Yewen, who apparently can travel really fast, and
Yeah.
also someone just threatened to eat me if I
mess something
mess
up.
which I don't even know how I can mess up.
If I spill one drop of tea,
Yeah,
she's
so
going to get me.
you want me to hobble away from supernatural beings? I don't understand the logic.
But the doctor's like, it's okay. I got a crutch for you, so here you go.
Weapon of choice.
So, yeah, the doctor gives us a crutch. We're on our way. It's finally nightfall, so we can go outside. The doctor's like, hey, Dahlia, go outside, make people feel, a little bit more relaxed, because people are a little bit shaken up by the new arrival, that being Egret's betrothed, because they're like, we don't want some vampire in here that doesn't know the rules and is just gonna go attacking people. So just, let people know that it's okay. Dahlia's like, okay, I got this. We go out. We go out of the, doctor's place. It's nighttime. Dahlia tells us a little bit about town. It's apparently called Hemlock, and it used to be like this very tiny city, or village more like, and then now it's like the largest human settlement in the Northern Territories, which is all thanks to Dalia really making sure that there's like a secure, level of safety and peace within the area. They even have like a feeding type of. I feel like instead of taxes, they have a feeding arrangement.
You don't have to pay us.
Where it's like
drink from you.
Yeah, where they have like a rotation of people, who basically give their blood to the family to keep going in, assurance that they'll protect each other, essentially. Which I feel like is not bad, because they just do it by like bloodletting, which is not the safest, option, but it's like really the only option they got so far. Which Dalia wants to find a safer option, but she's like, this is what we got so far, and I'm just trying to make it so that we all can live in peace, humans and vampires. There's no need for animosity and to be scared and whatnot.
Such an easy task she set for herself.
Yeah, I know. The easiest goal. Unite everybody. It's like, oh, Dahlia, you sweet thing.
So naive.
And then she talks a little bit about the town's sea trade, which is mainly, manned by Yewen, who basically only allows a few select merchants to come to the town via the port that they have and supply food and, whatnot. So they get the best stuff, because Yewen's like, only the best.
Only the best for me and my girls.
And the townspeople, I guess, whatever.
Sure.
But she's like, whatever you want, Dahlia, sure, whatever. So they do that, and then, suddenly a townsperson comes up and is like, oh, Dahlia, we're so glad to see you. I'm so glad you're safe, blah, blah, blah. It's like really shows in that moment, like, how actually the people really do like her. Because, like, previously when she's like, oh, I like humans and I try to, do my best, I thought that probably there would still be some, like, distancing and, but it's like, the people are like, oh yeah, no, Dahlia's cool.
Yeah.
Like, she keeps us safe and, like, we can trust her and we can have a nice talk with her. We could have tea with her and whatnot, so it's nice. And then after that, another person comes in, it's a man's voice, and just comes up and is like, taking in another stray, I see. And I'm just like, excuse me.
It's a very nice voice too, which is really just off-putting.
It's a double-edged sword,
Ooh, nice, but also the words coming out of your mouth are terrible.
I know. Your voice is so nice, but your words hurt. So then we learn that this man goes by the name of Arbitus and, is a close friend of Dahlia since childhood. And he's like, oh, I'm just in town for business and whatnot, and like, you haven't forgotten about he basically says, like, you haven't forgotten what year it is, right? And Dahlia's like, oh, I've been busy taking care of people and stuff, so I don't remember, which I don't know what that means. I'm assuming that means like some kind
I've
of
been doing productive things.
yeah. He's like, oh, I see you have a pet with you, and we're like,
What's the pet thing? Like,
and then he's like, oh, but don't work too hard, they seem troublesome, and then he like goes and calls her Dolly, which is her nickname, and I'm just like, sir, you have crossed the line.
Actually, shut up, please. Like,
Yeah.
don't shut up, because it's nice to hear you, but also shut up.
So, he's like, he seems to genuinely care about Dahlia and whatnot, and then all of a sudden, some other person comes in, and they're like, Dahlia, something's going on. So then she's like, oh, I gotta go take care of this. So she leaves us with this
him.
man. Yeah. And he basically makes it clear that, don't do anything stupid. Don't get any ideas of being romantic or whatnot with Dahlia. I don't need her to be distracted.
For me,
and, I don't need her
clearly into.
And she's like, just so you know that you are a pet, don't step out of line, whatnot.
You really should have hit her with a crutch.
And I won't allow you to hurt her. Which I feel okay. I've re-listening to this before this thing. When I first listened to this, I was very much like, I hated him. I will be straight up. I hated him the first time I heard it because I care about Dahlia so much, and I'm like, I'm not gonna hurt Dahlia. What are you talking about? But with context that he's a childhood friend, and he does sound like he does care about her, so I'm like, okay, all right, I can see where you're coming from.
I still should hit him with our crutch.
But I will hit you with my crutch.
Friend or otherwise.
So yeah. So then Dahlia comes back, and she's like, "Oh, Yewen's back," and I'm like, "Oh God, lovely."
Really, too much control over the situation. You need to add another.
Yeah, and she's like, come on, let's go greet Yewen and make sure she doesn't cause any trouble. And I'm like, are we going with you to this crazy woman? I'm like, okay, Dahlia, I trust you. And then, of course, Arbitus is like, oh, well, I must accompany you because it's always better, when there's two against her. And then Dahlia makes a sweet comment like, oh, we do make such a pleasant team. And I'm like, okay, Dahlia.
Shut up, Arbitus. Nobody asked you.
Yeah, so then they go off, and that's the end of that. I have so many feelings. It's just a lot,
Mm-hmm.
Like, not only is this listener, is Sunflower, now has, basically a hobbling leg and only a crutch. They're going to be introduced to this, Yewen, and she's...
The name of her audios are Sadistic Vampire.
And then Yewen's gonna just have her blood bag with her Capri Sun. So that should be fun.
Oh, they're gonna get along so well.
It's like, how'd you get here? Pirate ship.
I was a stupid
She basically
captain.
killed my whole crew.
I was a really bad captain.
So I went,
and
yeah,
I made some decisions, and now I ended up here because she thinks I'm entertaining.
It's like, what about you? Oh, I was running away for my life from a ball that went bad, and my leg's broken, basically. So yeah.
You're gonna have to defend the both of us. I can barely do that for I can't even take care of myself. So, oh my gosh, they both can't take care of themselves. Oh my gosh, these poor listeners.
I mean, they're going against vampires. Well, not going against.
They're dead. They're already dead.
The only listener that seems capable is, Egret's.
Yeah, because they're a vampire.
They're a vampire. So then that's basically the whole rundown of their stories. I hope that was concise enough. Yeah. It's just, I Dahlia, I love her.
She's great. And I think she was like the first one we met. So.
Yeah. It was Dahlia, then Egret, and then Yewen. I'm happy to have Yewen. It's an interesting, angle to get at the whole vampire society from, but she is scary.
Yeah. I appreciate her as like a character. I'm just like, okay. Yes. I just, if I was in that, right, I would no, I'd be dead. I couldn't
I
be
have
around here.
I have no clue where that story's gonna go with Yewen. What is that listener gonna
How
do? It's hard to see them becoming buddy.
or any like even I could buddy is hard, let alone romance. I'm like, how?
Can't wait to see what you do with that, Spark.
I don't know how you're gonna do it, but it'll be great. I guess now theories.
Theories and our questions.
So
Ooh,
many
God.
questions. Guys, we'll be honest, we have so many more questions than answers and theories. So we're gonna be running into walls a lot. So I guess the first one. Egret is the only turned vampire that ended up okay? Question mark. After her transformation. Is that a coincidence? We said probably, but like, we I think we brought this up earlier. Why does she, have such a dislike for humans if she was one, even if she has no memory, even if she didn't grow up around them. She was probably alienated as a kid for being the only vampire, for being the only non-vampire in a house of vampires.
Yeah.
In vampire society. So like because she was treated so differently, she hates them? Or like what's the deal?
Yeah. But she's not like really she's not really okay, I was gonna say she's not really mean, but she was kinda mean.
She was kind
But
of.
she's
I will
but
kill
she's
you if you mess up.
but she's not like I feel like that's more of an
Yeah.
intimidation rather than like a I'm actually gonna do this because even she was like, yeah, I don't really like blood that much. I just, because like they each have like an opinion
Mhm.
about how they feel about blood. Like Dahlia's really just not into it, but of course she has to because she's a vampire. And then Yewen, she loves it. She's like, the hunt's fun. Let's do this. But then Egret's kind of just like, I'll just, drink it so that I can survive. But I'm not gonna take more than I need. But yeah, so she's, she's indifferent about humans, I guess.
Also, the whole thing with the peace ball, like she was like the way that she said it was like, oh,
Uh-huh.
she should understand. And like hearing about like what happened, like she was like, oh, she should, Dahlia should understand that, you know, peace is not an option.
The human kingdom aren't
I was
the
like,
human kingdoms aren't going to like try and be nice to us, which is like
this isn't her fault. It had nothing
interesting.
to do with that. This
Yeah.
is an attack on them.
Also, I like how not concerned she was. She's like, "Oh yeah, they were attacked. Well, she's here, so."
It's probably fine. It's not that big of a deal.
I mean, I guess maybe she thinks Dahlia is capable of herself, but I don't know. I feel like there should be some concern of like, "Are you all right? What happened?" But that's not very egret, to be like so.
Showing emotion? Mm-mm.
Yeah,
We're not there yet.
emotion is not her thing. No.
And I think what Dahlia said that did she say with her I think she was talking about like with Egret's position, she could make a lot of change. But even like just who she is, right? As a turned vampire, right?
Mhm.
You would think, well, I
Yeah.
guess I don't know if that would work kind of counter because they'd be like, oh, why were you turned? Or like, why did you join their side? But like,
Yeah.
I guess you could be like, yeah, I'm a vampire now, but I was human. And,
Mhm.
living both, being part of both of those worlds, even though she technically kind of wasn't. She can finesse that. Like, yeah, being part of both of those worlds, right? She could really actually make some change if she wanted
Mhm.
to, but she's so against it.
She's very much sticking to tradition, which I think is probably due to the part that she has to, take care of House White. So she's trying to like meet up to the standards of Lillian White, which we don't really know what the standards are, but I'm assuming they're, to be the best vampire. I guess. I don't know what that means, but
Um, but yeah, and also like the whole guess vampires don't like her already, so her being,
mhm.
pro-human is not gonna help with that.
That would just make them look down on her even more.
Yeah.
But when it's like Dahlia doing it, they're kind of just like, "Oh, she's
She's
just
going through a phase.
weird." Yeah.
I wanna know what those weaknesses are for vampires outside of like the sun. But like
Mhm.
she's like, they know I'm stronger, right? Then because I have, I don't have their weaknesses. And like, what are their weaknesses?
Yeah. Maybe like silver. This is just me thinking
Like
like
garlic?
supernatural knowledge and what garlic. They can't have any garlic.
It's not allowed within a 5-foot radius of the castle. You're caught with that stuff, you're done.
I like to imagine if they just had garlic, they'd just get like an allergic reaction. But yeah, I don't know. Do you want to move to blood purity?
I mean, sure.
So another thing that we have questions, not really any theories about, is the whole blood purity thing.
It's such a
Like, how do you determine the purity of one's blood?
because they're not.
Like I said earlier, like maybe it's like a tree, a family tree thing,
Yeah, but like
where they have to like look at people's past and whatnot. But I don't know.
you're still like it's not. I would like you're still like vampire. It's still all vampire blood, right? So like even if it's like you're like it doesn't matter if it's like a vampire from House White and say like there's a House Green, like it's still all pure vampire blood. So like unless you were mixing with humans, but they don't like humans, so I doubt that that's why. But like, how do you get from 90 to 50 or like 80 and all of that? How does that work? And like the whole like I think 75 was a number or something. I was like 75. How did you get there? How do you just determine
did
the
you come
exact
up with that?
percentage of the blood of pure blood in your body? I just want to know more about that.
Well, I guess there could potentially be, like, instead of, because Egret did mention that she did get offers from other species, non-vampire. She did mention that in her first part, I think. Or was it the second? Either way, she mentioned it at one point. So maybe that could come into play. Maybe there are some vampire lords who are marrying, like, a Naga or something. I don't know.
We don't know
what other
also there.
supernaturals they got.
We should say we don't know what other supernatural beings there are, except for like werewolves and vampires.
Werewolves.
And whatever the heck attacked the peace ball.
Which is
Anything
probably
and everything.
not a werewolf.
It could be literally anything.
Yeah. It made weird sounds. Anyway. And we know that there are other types of like monsters or beasts because of, what's her name? Oh my god. Blackthorn?
Yeah, Absinthe. Right?
Blackthorn.
Absinthe is such a cool name.
there
Oh
we
my
go.
gosh.
So because of her series, we know that there are other like beasts and possibly supernatural beings. So yeah, there's a load of options. But yeah, so maybe that could come into play with the whole purity thing, where they end up with a werewolf lord if they have that.
I would love to see what werewolf society is like. Oh my gosh.
Oh god.
That'd be so cool.
Wait,
I want that.
you remember that poodle thing that I sent you? that is our werewolf lord.
It needs to be a character.
I'm gonna see if I'll pop that up on the screen when I'm talking about it, because I want people to see this thing.
Oh my gosh, it's like the single greatest thing I think I've seen. People are so creative on the internet.
It's just so fancy.
I love people.
I know.
Like werewolf, but make it a poodle. Like specifically,
We get poodle and fancy.
like I was gonna say like not Marie Antoinette. I'm so good with words. Marie Antoinette, like King Louis VIII or whatever. Whatever history. Okay, that time period
With the whole wig
thing.
Yeah. So probably there could be like some of that comes to play with
like
the whole
werepire
purity thing, if they're allowed. If they're allowed to do that, yeah. What would that look like?
Like, oh my gosh, I'm like gonna cry. I'm laughing. Oh my gosh, can you imagine? Oh, that poor child.
I wonder how they would be treated in vampire society.
Not well.
Because they are part vampire, but they're also not
well.
Vampire society seems a little, uppity.
A little?
And snooty. Yeah. More than a little. And also, when we were talking, because, like, Spark does these, like, mini Q&A things, or she'll be like, 5 minutes on the clock, ask me questions about said character, or whatever.
In that moment, you forget everything you've ever thought about of character.
I know, you just like, questions, I don't know, what's their favorite color?
And then, like, 2 minutes after the deadline, it's like, oh, I could have asked this.
You come up with the best question, yeah. But yeah, so, like, during one of those times, we were, like, talking about vampires, and then later we were talking about, like, Arbutus, and she was like, yeah, Arbutus is actually pretty nice. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, compared to most vampire nobles, Arvidus is pretty nice because of Dahlia's influence. And I was like, oh god, what's gonna happen when we meet like an actual like vampire noble outside of like, our three girls and like the people so far? Because like even the listener for like Egret seems, well, we don't really know how they feel about humans, but at least they're gonna follow the rule and not just bite somebody.
I mean, they
So,
were trying to leave other families, so I guess, they're probably going to be more tolerant than...
but yeah, so blood purity. We have no idea what it
How does
actually,
it work?
how you do that
Just
math,
explain
but
it.
maybe it's mixing with other supernaturals or not marrying a noble. I don't know.
I guess if, like,
Um,
well, I was going to say turn vampires, but that has nothing to do with it. And also, they don't last long enough, it sounds like, to ever do that.
yeah,
I guess if you married a lower class, but how do lower class vampires happen? Maybe lower class vampires get with humans.
maybe I guess so, and they just kind of do their own thing.
Yeah. But I mean, that still has nothing to do with like the nobility. And this whole blood purity
Mhm.
thing seems like a big nobility issue. Yeah, we'll find out hopefully at some point.
Someday.
Um, what's next?
Lillian adopting.
Yeah.
So why did Lillian adopt these three girls and not have her own kid?
This could have to do with like something we're going to touch upon a little later. The whole powers thing, right? Because pureblood vampires or 95% and above have abilities. So you're wondering
Mhm.
if like, because she chose Egret, and I think especially like using Egret as the best example. All the other turned vampires, right, don't last, but Egret did. How did she
Yeah.
know, right, to choose her? How did she know that
Mhm.
this is something I have to do for all of them too? Like for Yewen, I don't even
Yeah.
know why she chose, except for I guess Yewen because she grew up we found out in the server that yeah, Yewen was in a bad place before she was adopted.
Yeah. But she was of
She was
like
a noble still.
high, yeah, she was a noble. She had, a good amount of pure blood. Thus, as you can tell by her ability being called the Ghost of the North. Um
Um, so and why Dahlia? Um, so we were saying maybe. So yeah, no, we were like maybe she knew that she had like she saw the future and she saw that, oh, I have to choose these three girls.
and because since Dahlia was like, she's the newest member of the family, she was adopted. And then Egret said that Dahlia had a pre-standing or arrangement since birth, not since the adoption, since birth. So I don't
But we don't know this
like.
whole like
Maybe that was.
new addition. Also, like they're like, oh, she's the new addition. I'm like, that that's like something you say to a kid when
How
yeah,
new,
like how new
also.
is this? Like, is this in the last 50 years? I don't know how time works for them. But like this
Yeah.
seems like, oh, she was like pretty old by the time that she was brought into the family. At least it
Hmm.
sounds like that. We don't know for sure. This is all speculation. Like, also, who are these families that are just giving up their kids? I guess for you and
Maybe there
if it was that bad,
might have just,
take on her. But
yeah.
like Dahlia, it seems like, oh, it was just kind of happened.
Yeah, she's like, oh, you're our kid now. I don't know.
You're
Yeah,
mine now.
what the circumstances for each of them being adopted is
Mhm.
unclear.
And Egret being like having no memory. I'm like, how does that happen?
Yeah, she's like, adopted this human child with no memory. And I'm like, what caused you to have no memory? Unless it was literally just like, trauma blocked kind of memory type
Maybe.
thing. Or it's magical. So it could be either or in this case,
Yeah.
you
I
never
don't really
know.
know how magic works in that world.
Yeah.
Because normally, like, you would hear it be brought up, but like nobody brings it
Hmm.
up.
Like obviously magical beings,
Yeah.
they have like supernatural
Yeah.
abilities. It's not like they're just vampires. Like friggin' Yewen can like gotta go fast and be Sonic or something. I don't know.
Uh, so yeah, that
Um,
kind of goes into the next thing. So yeah, we're not really sure why she chose them. Maybe she knew that she had to for like there's a specific reason. And then
mhm,
that kind of goes into what we've been kind of talking about a bit. Like they have powers. What are their powers?
mhm.
Ewan, I think it's been talked about. Like it's not been confirmed, but like
It's
yeah,
insinuated based on what we hear.
that like Ewan has like super speed or something like that.
And I don't know, do you think she can control the fog? Because the fog was a big thing about like, when the fog rolls in, that's when she comes.
When the
Like,
fog rolls in, like when the cows come home.
like, but I don't know. I feel like something like that. So I don't know if that's just she just chooses the moment when the fog gets heavy, or if she really can actually control the fog. That's a weird power, but
Like it's just fog, no other weather.
it's just. Can you imagine her only power is fog? She's not even fast. She just makes it so hard to see that she's able to get you. Oh god.
I don't know why I'm like
I'm
so
sorry,
I'm
Yewen.
so like affected by these. I find it so funny. Sorry, Ewan. Don't kill us.
And then we have Dahlia, which you had suggested might be like the power of persuasion.
Yeah, like okay, so the way I was describing it to Peachy and DMs is very roundabout because again, English is very difficult for us, or at least for me.
I
Yeah,
can't English
yeah.
either. Let's
It.
be real.
Why is that hard, you guys? I don't.
As you have trouble.
Yeah, you all have
Oh.
seen just how difficult. But like I was like, oh, it's kind of like Piper, and like Heroes of Olympus, or whatever. I might be saying the series wrong. No, it's fine. I know the books. Like Piper could like charm people, right? She could persuade them to give them whatever she wanted, and that's how she was able to, get cars and all that stuff, right? But like for Dahlia, it's not really seductive. It's more like, oh, I can just kind of get into your head and like kind of, oh, it'll be fine. I can persuade you, I can come because also I'm sure as nice as she is, these are vampires and humans. This is not exactly something that's so easy to. That's a kind of relationship that's not so easy to build. Right. So, and even if
but somehow she's able to ease,
like
people
everyone, it seems,
into thinking it's gonna be
yeah,
okay.
like everybody, and it like I'm sure like oh yeah, she could get some people by being nice and just being herself. Like I'm sure there had to be like not a few people, but like a small, a decent sized group of people that were like, no, this is stupid. Why would we trust you ever? And like she would have to go to them and maybe use those powers to be like, hey, relax. I'm not here to hurt you. But like, so maybe yeah, she's able to like persuade people. I don't know if that's a real power, but
I feel like it. I mean,
throwing it
think
out
about
there.
like, okay, this is not this series, but think about like, Siren stuff and Cameron.
Oh my gosh, yeah. I could have used that as an analogy. What?
It just came to me, so
it was right under our noses the entire time. Yeah, so basically Cam, but like not as. I mean, Cam's isn't even romantic either. It's just like they're able to charm people.
It's so charming. That's why I like Dahlia so much.
She got
I'm
you.
being charmed. She got me. And then we have Egret, which we really have no clue.
God. Like it'll come out and it'll be like something crazy, and I'll be like, of course it was. Like, of all the people, of course it was her with this like crazy, amazing skill.
We've speculated that she can maybe like, I don't know, read minds or human minds.
Yeah,
because
I was so dumb when I said that. Thinking about it now, because I was like, at first it was like, oh, maybe she can hear things. No, oh my gosh, no. But like the whole like, oh, she can tell what's going on in the house. I'm sure it's difficult to tell, like, but also then her vampire listener.
It's a castle. It's a big house.
She's not
I feel
everywhere
like
at once.
even with like heightened abilities, she can't know what's happening.
But also she was able to hear, like, she knew that listener was in the study more than in the room. So I guess it's not even just doesn't have to be human mind. Maybe it's just any mind. Because I'm sure also servants are going to be careful to talk about vampires behind their back, because I don't know if they just naturally have super hearing or whatever. But
yeah, I mean, I feel like the vampires have like they have heightened senses. Is that what it said? Yeah, heightened senses. That's what. Or at least that's what comes when you're turned, right? So I would assume that's just a part of being a vampire in itself.
So they're not going to talk trash, but they may think it, and then she'll be like, I know what you were thinking.
I know what you think of me.
It's fine. I don't like you either. But yeah, so maybe she's able to read minds, and that's how she knows everything that's going on. That's how she knew that there was a listener in. Besides the smell, apparently. Poor listener. Poor Sunflower just gets bullied by everybody.
I know.
Like, so, that's how she was maybe able to tell. Like, there's a new presence, or I guess a new mind, a new voice in the house.
Also, speaking about Egret, I kind of want to talk about her listener for a bit because in the first part she's like, "Oh, I made a study because you talked about like liking to read." But in the second part she talks about how like, "Oh, I've noticed you've been in there. What a good use of your ability," or something like that. She says something like that. And because I was re-listening to it yesterday and I was like, "Oh, does that mean like the listener might have like some kind of like reading ability? They can read so
really
good.
well.
Maybe they can process information quickly or something like that. I don't know. Or like photographic
Oh
memory,
my gosh, I wish.
which is a real thing, but
That would be such an amazing
know.
skill. I wish I had that skill. I knew someone in school who was like, "Oh yeah, I could just read something once and then I don't really have to study." I was like, "Are you serious? I have to
I know. That
I
hurts
have to
me.
spend like what, 3/4 of my day looking at a book." And that's even just like I get so distracted. Like, how do you Yeah, so maybe they have
Yeah, she says, "It pleases me that you're putting your gift to good use." So I don't know if it means like the gift, like as in, "Oh, I gifted you this like study," or as in like using our ability gift. It could be interpreted either way, but I'm going to guess that, since I mean they are a noble, so they probably have an ability. So I'm gonna guess that they, might have an ability that has to do with reading or something. That
it's
sounds so
something,
stupid.
okay? Also, you all
Yeah.
have to like, you know, keep this in mind. We have these are what we combined have like a total of 3, 6, 8 audios of them. And that's like
Hmm.
that encompasses the entirety of the vampire lore that we know of. There's going to be a lot of speculation. Maybe when we look back at this, we're probably going to be like, "Oh my gosh, what were we thinking?" But like, this is what we know.
Like really good at reading. Wow.
You did your best.
It's like what? That was all I could think at the time.
Just go back in time and be
With
like,
the information I
"How
was given.
stupid were you guys?"
Okay. So then back to, we did Egret and then Lillian White, which we know very little about. But you were I think you were the one who guessed this.
I was like, "Oh, it'd be funny if she like that's how she knew to like choose them. That like she chose them for a
No.
purpose."
Lillian is just that so Raven.
Oh gosh.
She can see into the future.
I just want like a Spark version of the theme song now.
Yep.
Please.
Please, Spark,
Oh
if
my
you
gosh.
have the
Can you make that
time.
like a subscriber like milestone or something?
Everyone vote. We're gonna make a petition and get Sparks to make Lillian White have a theme
Mhm.
song. That's a
Just like
Raven
it's like
style.
just shy of like it's like not quite it's like you avoid the copyright, but like it's you can tell. But so yeah, we're like, oh, maybe she knew she chose them for a reason. But what exactly is the reason? I feel like for Egret, right, it kind of feels not obvious, but like you can tell, like, oh, her being the first turn vampire is significant, right? And that
Hmm.
might have something to do with that. And Dahlia, it's this bridging of human and vampire relations or whatever
Yeah.
words. But Yewen,
Maybe she just felt bad for you.
maybe.
But yeah. I mean, Lillian was definitely taking a risk with Egret. So, like, I feel like you wouldn't take that risk without having, like, a failsafe that knowing that it's gonna
Yeah.
be okay in the
You have to have like
end.
some kind of, oh yeah, this is, some security.
Yeah. And Egret, she did talk about how, like, even being turned, it still wasn't easy for her. It's not like she was turned and was like, I'm fine. It still was a hard experience for her.
Mhm.
And she still had to deal with like many of the things that like other turned vampires, but just in the end, she ended up being able to control herself and all of that. So it's not that it was like, she magically was like, I'm a vampire now and there's no issues whatsoever. It's like no, she had to deal with probably a frenzy of hunger and whatnot
Yeah.
and all that other stuff we
Now
talked
it seems
about.
like she's kind of just
So,
bottled it up, and I'm waiting for
mhm.
her to just kind of let it out.
Oh my god, is Egret gonna have a freaking Isabella moment from Encanto?
Please! Oh my gosh. It gets to a point
Because
like
she's like the perfect
She
daughter,
scares
right?
you, and that's how bad it gets.
Oh
Like,
my god.
oh, that'd be great, but also terrifying. I don't want to hear.
Okay.
I want to hear it, but I'm also
Very,
like,
yeah.
so we don't really know what the deal is with why she chose Ewan, or I mean, we can guess about the others.
The only thing that we know about Yewen was like from one of those like 5-minute Q&A things, where somebody asked a question, and what is that question?
Maybe she knew that, like...
Oh, Christy. Christy asked the question of what was her life like before adoption, and Sparks basically said like she wasn't in a good place before meeting Lillian. It's not a lot, but it's something. And we know that she is, like, of nobility. So, something happened to her. Something traumatic that probably made her crack and go cuckoo.
Watch her be like, I saved you because I knew that one day you're going to find someone that helped you heal. And it's... Stupid Capri Sun.
It's Capri Sun.
I can't wait. I want Caspian. If they ever make a new crew, I hope Caspian is the new captain, and I don't even think we should be a first mate. I don't even like.
We need to be like the deckhand where we're just like mopping.
Like, keep us up in the crow's nest. Just like,
I love all these characters, by the way, but it's just so funny.
We love them, and we love to make fun of them. So what's next? Okay, so Christy's theory about Dahlia.
Yeah, so Christy has had this reoccurring theory that's been popping, like she's really sticking to it, and I wanted to mention it because she's talked about it so much, and she has allowed me to talk about it. I asked her, and she was like, yeah, sure. And she gave me this nice, concise little paragraph that I'm going to read off, and then we'll kind of riff off of that. So basically, her theory is that Dahlia's biological mother was a commoner, her basis being the fact that Dahlia doesn't seem to, wear clothing that makes her stand out as much as a noble compared to, like, her sisters. Like, Yewen is very fancy schmancy. Like, she's in pirate gear, but she's got, like, all this gold and rubies and whatnot. And, Dahlia has, like, some, jewelry and stuff, but, like, in comparison to her sisters, she doesn't look the most fancy schmancy. Not showing off. Compared to her sisters, she's the most quote-unquote basic. And these are her words. And then so she also says that Dalia also gets along with common folk quite easily and seems to have no problem walking amongst them. She doesn't seem to think of herself as above them and is friendly towards them and possibly lived among them as a child. Her evidence being like this one bit of this one line where it said, although most tend to, I think this was Egret that said this, although most tend to view her through pitying eyes due to something that happened to her before she was adopted by Lillian. I wonder, Spark might have said that in the server, I don't know. But anyway, the only way people would know her before getting adopted, at least that intimately and knowing her situation, was if she was living amongst the common folk. So that's her whole theory on that, which I feel like, there's a lot of stuff that definitely backs it up, and we haven't even really gotten, because, like, just earlier we were theorizing about her ability, but, like, she could just be a nice person and that not be her ability, because even in the first part, when she was talking about abilities, she was talking about, like, oh, I wish I had something like Yewen had, kind of almost talking like she didn't have one, but it could have just been, like, just comparing her, whatever her ability may be, to Yewen's. So there's definitely potential of, like, Dahlia's birth mother being a commoner, or just, like, a lower vampire.
I would think the lower vampire would be probably more, I would believe that more than being, like, her being full human, because, again, vampire-human relations, I doubt that that's...
Also, if she was human, that means she turned and was okay. So I think when she says commoner, she means more like lower class vampire.
That can make sense, but I don't know, like, we don't know the whole relationship with lower class vampires and humans. And I, even though I'm sure lower class vampires and nobles don't get along very well, I doubt that they'd get along with humans. So yeah,
any better.
So maybe I think it might be more she's just like she might be a kind person, and, like, she understands, maybe because she grew up as a lower class, or she came from a lower class family, she understands this whole like and being treated differently by noble vampires, right? She understands, humans a bit more. That also would call into question, if she is a lower class vampire, is she then not, and this whole, she might not have, she does, the whole, wishing for Egret, not Egret, Yewen's ability. Is it kind of like people don't know that she's actually not a pure-blooded vampire? And she's actually, a lower class, but she's been brought up?
Because, I mean, if she was brought up by Lillian, people wouldn't question her because it's Lillian.
But they might not necessarily know that, she's not actually close to being pure blood. And maybe she doesn't, I wouldn't say that she doesn't know, but she never talks about her life before she was adopted, so she might not even know.
Yeah, she doesn't even really ever talk about herself. All she talks about is, wanting to get humans and people together. But, like, we know nothing about her and her hobbies and what her likes and dislikes are.
So,
at least Yewen, we have some idea of what she likes. She likes murdering people.
Murder.
It's a weird hobby, but at least we know something about her personality.
And even Egret, like, we know about her backstory. Like, she was she was really forthcoming, which is, was unexpected. But it feels like, Dahlia, maybe she's keeping a secret. Because also, newest edition, this whole, like, I don't know. I just feel like if anything, right, she could be lower class, and then no one except maybe her and, Lady White know that she's not actually of a noble class.
But, like, people, so, like, also, like, what she said, I don't know where this line came from, I can't remember, but it was, they view her through oh my god, pittering? What is English?
That's like, what, pitter-patter of feet. That's what I think that was coming from. Oh my gosh, words.
Yeah. Okay. Most tend to view her through pitying eyes due to something that happened to her before she was adopted.
This isn't from the audio, right?
So,
this is like something...
I don't think so. I think this might have been something that was said in the Discord, chats and stuff with Spark. So, like, it could be that they pity, like, whatever happened to her, like, maybe something happened to her family, and she was a commoner, so that's why people know about it. Or, I mean, like, a lower class vampire, and that's why people know about it. Or, yeah, I don't know. Something about that's like, there's something there.
Sense.
There's always something there.
It'd be interesting if they were killed by, if her parents were killed by human hunters. Human hunters, no. Hunters that are human.
No, Yewen's a human hunter.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so that'd be not ironic, but like a little ironic. Oh, I, fight for humans, and my parents were killed by them, so.
Oh, that would be some good angsty reasoning behind it. She's like, I'm not gonna treat everyone like all humans are the same because I'm a vampire and I'm different. The more I think about it, the more I'm like, Dahlia is the, like, I'm different from other vampires.
We love her, but like,
I love her, yeah.
But yeah, so I think lower class vampire origin story.
Yes. So that's Christy's thing, and I think that's pretty. I have no words. My mind literally just went blank. I feel like that's a good theory, is what I was trying to say. That my brain just was like, computing. So that was Christy's theory, and then the next question theory thing. Oh, yeah. So, like, I had a whole question about, like, what's the whole deal with, like, Egret's betrothed, because the listener is, or dearest, is a noble, but isn't like the not the top choice. It was Egret's top choice based on, like, compatibility, and, like, Yewen and Dalia were like, yeah, they're nice.
I was like, how do you know Yewen?
But
how does their listener and Yewen run in the same circle outside of being vampire nobility?
I mean, they probably have, like, vampire balls or something like that. Events where they have to bump into each other.
Awkward conversations. So how did your week go? I murdered 2 crews.
By
myself.
I took down 2 pirate ships. What about you? And it's like, I was reading in my library.
I read a book.
But yeah, so they thought that the listener dearest was, a nice person or a good person. Apparently, like, this listener isn't like maybe the top choice in terms of like nobility. Like there probably are like better options in terms of like political union. And then also there's like the fact of like Egret was like, oh, like you're trying to get away from your home. It's like why are we trying to get away from our home? Like what's up with their family life that this, listener is wanting to leave? I mean, if they're vampires, I understand, but
Tell me about your home life.
I need to know. But yeah, so like I feel like there's something there that I want to learn more about. It's like I always like learning a little bit about the listener. I know that people like to keep it open so that you can like kind of come up with your own thing, but I like to have some implied background of like what's going on.
It's fun. So now I just want I want Yewen and I don't know, Dearest. There we go. I want them to be best friends. So like it's like the most unlikely friendship, but it works.
Pairing. Yeah. Like, can you imagine just Yewen and Dearest being like buddy? Only because probably Dearest is the only one that's actually willing to listen to Yewen
so
talk.
Tired of like other people. Yewen is a breath of fresh air compared to their home life. Oh my gosh, it has to be really bad then.
Yeah. Oh my god, can you imagine?
They're like, I put off a lot of people. You seem kind of, chill. And they're like, you are the best thing that has happened to me in a while.
So I feel like there's something there, but like I don't know quite what, because I mean they're a noble, but so how hard can life be if they've been brought up to like think a certain way? I don't know. I'm just saying, like if they were brought up to think a certain way, and clearly if they are a noble, they're probably not the eldest in their family, because otherwise they would be running their home instead of marrying Egret and joining Egret.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. Could insinuate that potentially our listener Dearest might have family members, siblings that were not great to them. Yeah, I don't know.
Family reunion.
Oh my god. I want to see that. I want to see what the listener's family is like.
Actually, I want Egret going off on their family.
Yes.
Come on, please.
That'd be scary, because Egret is...
They're like the people that talk
like
back
Yewen
about
is
her,
scary,
and then she's like, I know you.
but
she's scary when she wants to be.
But yeah. The next thing that I just wanted to like talk about, which I kind of touched on earlier, but it was having to do with Yewen's listener. So Yewen's listener is the pirate captain, and then their first mate, being voiced by Siren, named Caspian, might be the brother of Vivian, the assassin lady that we know.
So cool.
And then the context behind that is found in her audios. But it kind of pertains to like this world, or it's like connecting these two series together a little bit. So I felt like it was something to point out. And in Vivian's thing, she mentioned how like, oh, she got the message from her brother, and he was saying that like, oh, this is gonna be like my last job, and they were trying to retrieve something off the smaller islands of the shared zone, and they had to make their way to the north. So obviously, Capri-san is not telling the whole truth, because Capri-san tried to get something, or has an object of some kind. And that's the reason they were passing through.
Yewen did say, like, notice that they were like, they had to be an explorer or something. So like,
yeah.
Maybe that's like whatever they were looking for, right? Was what the crew. Maybe they're like, I don't want to say pirates as a cover, like the pirating was,
to make it look less suspicious, I suppose. It's like, they're just pirates, they're not doing anything, but like in reality they're like getting some like, ancient ruin thing. I don't know.
Something. We need to know more.
I don't know, something like that. And if so, if it is like an object that they found, is this on our person as Capri-san? Like, do we just have this in our jacket somewhere? Or is it just like
they didn't
on our
search
ship?
us? They didn't search us before like throwing us in the cell.
Or maybe maybe Yewen did search us, or Yewen's first mate probably, and what they found was something that didn't look of significance, but in fact it is.
Oh my god.
I don't know.
He's so cool.
Like it disguised itself. I don't know. I it's just that's like so wacky theory stuff. But like I just want to know what we were trying to like get that was so important that we were willing to go through the north. Like obviously also to avoid getting caught by the Navy with this thing, whatever it may be. But like so willing to even push on.
Yeah.
Even though it seemed like our listener was like, Ghost of the North, that's just a myth. But Caspian's like, dude, it is probably real. And next thing you know, you just hear people dying in the background.
Crew.
When I listened back to it, I was just like, I couldn't help but laugh sometimes because they'd be like, hey, where is everybody? It's just like you hear someone say, and I'm just like,
We're just vibing. Like, oh well, it was nice knowing them. What is wrong with you?
Like, what are we doing? Are we just standing there? And then next thing, of course, Caspian's like, sorry, Max is up the side of the head and we're knocked out. If anything, that is the best first mate you can
looking
have.
out for you. Like the Hermione of the group.
Yeah.
Making sure that they don't die.
Because Caspian could have just left us, left us for dead. Oh my god, I can't English. But instead was like, no, I'm gonna make sure you stay alive. But yeah, so that was just a little bit that I thought we should like point out at least, because it pertains to like the vampire stuff with Yewen at least. So next thing is, do we want to go through like all the Q&A stuff and just kind of like run down what info we got?
Sure. Let me find that.
Okay. Yeah. So as we've mentioned several times already, I feel like I've said this so many times, but it's a fun thing that Spark does where she like randomly just calls us out and is like, yo, 5 minutes on the clock. You got questions? And it's funny when you ask you have to ask very specific and not direct questions, because if you do, you will get a shrug, which hurts.
It physically and emotionally. It's like a sucker punch to the gut.
So we have to be very specific about our questions, otherwise we'll just get a straight up shrug, and I'm just like, the pain.
So, how do other vampire noble houses view House White as a whole, including Lillian and the girls? The answer to that was Lillian is one of the few pure blood, like 100% pure blood vampires left.
Mm-hmm. And
so she's the top of the food chain. Yeah, so no one really disagrees. Whatever she does is not questioned. So Egret is, because she's turned, people don't like her because of the whole elitist thing, but also they're afraid of her because of her abilities that we don't know of, right? Like she's stronger than them. Like she says in her audio, right? Like, I'm stronger than them and they know it, or something like that. Yeah. So they'll talk about her behind her back, but they're not actually gonna step to her. Yeah, and she's the only turn one, as we keep saying. But like, it's such a big
successfully
deal.
Yeah. Like, also, I didn't mention this when we did the summaries, but she talks about what was it called? Is solar execution.
Oh my gosh, she straight up just murder somebody. She's like, I stood there and watched.
And so like they just like they put a vampire in the sun because she can stand in the sun, it's even more intimidating because she's just standing there while they're just like I don't know,
dead in the
burning
eyes,
alive,
just, like, deadpan as they're like dying an agonizing death. It's terrifying.
So if that wasn't reason enough to be scared of her or be intimidated by her,
is terrifying. Yeah, so she's like established her, say dominance, but she's like, don't mess with me. I am to be respected.
Established her
dominance. She's established her dominance.
I just imagine her like T-posing, just being like dominance.
Oh my god. That's how you establish dominance.
Oh, can't breathe. Someone, art people, do that. Give me Egret.
I did that to my dog once. He was not impressed. He was like, what are you doing? I'm establishing dominance. Beer me. We're like losing it today. Just a little bit.
Yeah.
What is it? Oh my gosh. Vampires can fall for humans? I didn't know that. Okay. Oh my gosh, I'm talking so loudly. People in my house are gonna be like, what are you talking about? So normally, if a vampire falls for a human, they seek out approval from a noble house, and a designated and trained person of a lower purity rank commits the change. Oh, they turn the person. That's not even okay. Prevents mistakes in the forming of newborn armies, and it prevents the turned vampire from overpowering the nobles in place.
I don't think I ever read that,
I didn't
actually.
even know that existed. Didn't know this was real.
I just copy pasted and I'm like, yep.
Just save everything. Don't even register it. Like,
Yeah.
but that is so confusing for the blood purity thing. It's fine.
Mhm.
I don't know. I don't know.
Also, if you're turned, does that mean you're like, I don't know. What's your purity? Is it 100 because you were turned by, or is it like that of what the person turns you? So if they're like 95, you're like 95, or if they're 95, are you like 85?
But then, like, I thought also then that would make sense, right? For like how the blood purity would, less would decrease. Turned vampires don't, for them, like like it said, Egret is the only one that has survived the change and stayed sane. So how did they stay sane long enough to like have kids? Like, what happened? How do you have all of these, how do you turn someone, how do you have like with a lower, even with, lower rank, and like them be okay?
It's so confusing. The whole purity thing is very confusing, but also super interesting. All things considered, we have a lot of lore for just a few episodes.
There's so much. It's just like for
So-
like the one specific thing that you're like that you get stuck on, and you're like, I have to know more.
Initially, we were gonna do this episode on
my
all of Varia, but look how long it's been already, and we've only talked
I
about
thought
the
by
vampire
cutting it down, we
gals.
were like, oh, we're gonna do like maybe an hour episode. It won't be that, but like, we're gonna try and make it more manageable for people to listen to. It's already been like 2 hours.
I know. We no longer try. We
Sorry,
just
guys.
do.
But so yeah, I guess humans falling in love with vampires, I doubt is very common.
I don't know. If they were real in this world, I feel like it'd be
Oh my
very
gosh.
common.
The whole like thing. I just saw that for break for the first time. Oh my gosh, she's so stupid. I could kill you. He literally says, "I could kill you." She's like, "I don't care." What? That's a threat. That's a straight up threat.
Yeah, but he sparkles.
I don't care. Back to these vampires.
Yes. To real
Yeah.
sophisticated ones, not sparkly, glittery ones.
What was I saying? They're still talking about her because of this.
Like, even now, even though she's completely normal.
Normal question mark.
I don't want to call anybody normal without knowing a lot, but considering she's pretty, like, normal. She can handle herself. She doesn't go crazy. But still people are like,
He's gonna snap
oh my
one
god,
day.
Look at Egret.
You keep talking about her like that.
Like,
Yeah,
oh my
she
god, that's
definitely will.
Egret. She was turned.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, I don't know. Like, I guess time is different for them because Yewen has been doing her pirate thing for straight up almost century.
Yeah. Wonder how old they all
Yeah.
are. Is another
There's also the
question I
new
have,
edition
because
thing.
we don't actually know anybody's
Right? Like,
age.
oh, new
Yeah.
is new. Like, I doubt it's been like the last 5 years.
Like, what's new? Yeah, what's new in terms of vampire years?
I would love to learn like about like vampire origins and stuff. Like, how long have they been around?
Yes.
They just origins of the continent and like. But I mean, we learned through other characters, right, about the history of.
At least the
But,
capital
like,
and
I
stuff.
think getting
Yeah.
like kind of like like having like a not a narrative, but like kind of written out like, oh, these events happened, then these events happened, and then the vampires came in, and like.
I mean, we could potentially get more info, not through this series, but through, like, Scribe, if she wanted to tell us a story.
Please, Scribe. I miss Scribe.
Scribe, can we have story time about Varia?
Oh my gosh, Scribe is one of my. Oh, she's my favorite. Like one of my favorites. She's so good.
Yeah. It's because we can relate to
For
her
real.
so much.
Like, she wants all the tea. She just wants the two people. She just wants people that are meant to be together, and she will help make it happen.
Yeah. She's like, that's my OTP, you guys.
You don't understand it, but I do. And I know it's gonna happen. Oh my gosh, she would totally be part of the Rex Redemption Squad. We need her.
Scribe is honorary
Mhm.
Rex Redemption Squad, even though she's not a part of the universe. It's okay.
You don't need to be. You know you would be part of it.
And you can join too if you go to rexredemptionsquad.com.
For $1 a day, you can get this man some emotional maturity.
Some help.
Help him not have the emotional maturity of a spoon.
I love when you said that. I freaking died when you were like,
because he does. He really does. Because I have family members that have the emotional maturity of a spoon. He's just like them. Anyway.
Let's go. Okay,
Yeah.
let's go to Yewen next, because I feel like we talked about Egret for a long time. Well, we didn't talk about Egret. We talked about other stuff. But
okay, so Yewen
okay.
is most commonly thought of what a legitimate heir is supposed to be. She is as a born vampire of high enough purity to have an ability or power, and shares pretty much the same perspective and opinion on humanity. The nobles were probably hoping that Yewen would inherit, House or Castle White. I guess House White in general over Egret. Have they not met her?
I mean, maybe they're like, oh, she's like a little crazy, but she only does that to humans, not to vampires.
Spirit. Like you couldn't. She would rather be out there doing whatever she wanted than get involved in vampire politics. Oh my gosh, Disney! That is such a good movie, though. Yeah. So, despite her wild streak attributed to her youth, she secures the largest hunting ground in all of Vampire. Yeah, she's crazy powerful. Like she has, like she said, the entire Northern Sea is her territory, and vampires are very territorial. So that's also partially why she goes after all these ships, because she's like, you're in my space. All bets are off.
And we know that she has a ship and a crew. I wonder if she has like a fleet of other, ships.
Probably, maybe. But also, does she really need them? Does she need one?
Feel like
she can do it all herself.
Yeah. She's like, you just gotta have me. That's all.
Like she's like, before they even get on the boat, she's just like, I'm there, I handled it, just pick up whatever's there.
Like, what's your secret weapon? My secret weapon is me.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, like she is probably, I guess, what they would have liked as a leader, like not personality wise, but in everything that she brings to the table.
Yeah, it's not her thing. I mean, she's basically a pirate, and the whole thing being about pirate is not following the rules.
She doesn't want to be tied, not even just like tied down.
Like you don't become a pirate to like follow rules and, make the world just. You become a pirate to just pillage and
do whatever
and steal.
You want. We don't really know. I mean, I don't know a lot about pirates, I'll be honest, but like
I know about pirates. I love pirates. They're so bad, but so cool. I would not survive as a pirate.
I would not survive in all of these worlds.
I would be Capri Sun, okay?
We all are Capri Sun in some way. Yeah. That's Yewen. So yeah, Dahlia next. So Dahlia is known to be an eccentric.
Oh god, no, I can't
say the word. Eccentric. We're gonna go with that. Sorry if we're wrong.
Eccentric?
She's eccentric. We said this before. I love that she's considered the weird, quirky one, and Yewen straight up is murdering people.
Yeah, Yewen's normal. Vampire standards.
The logic is just astounding. Yeah, so she's eccentric. Most look at her through pitying eyes due to some of the things that happened to her before she was adopted by Lillian, which we don't really know about. Yeah.
That's where that was said.
So she's regarded as somewhat of a dreamer who has her head in the clouds. Yeah, her goals are pretty a tall order. Yeah. Since her perspective of humanity is rare, that's an understatement, and not really a thing among anyone but the very lowest class vampires, who are at least half human or more. I didn't know that.
Oh, okay. So that kind of answers our thing about like at least lower class vamps are probably okay with humans.
I love that we wrote this and we didn't even we do like, oh, we're learning this ourselves, like too, along with you guys.
We're learning with you.
Oh my gosh. So then how? So they're half human. They're 50%.
I wonder if they have to only eat. Like, do they have to do like half and half, where they like do
You just
food
have a
and
steak
blood.
really, really rare. Just a steak that's just barely cooked.
I love how we both added this. We're not reading this from the server. We added this to
But
the
where did we get
document.
this?
Or I added this to the document. And I didn't even read it. I was just like, copy paste, put it in there because I know this is going to be good information. I thought I read it. Apparently not.
I miss everything. Like, I have to listen to audios. Like, I had to listen to Spark's audios at least 20 times. Like, that's not even an exaggeration. I probably listened to it at least, like, definitely way over, like, 10, 15 times. Like, be like, to have some kind of, retention of what was going on. Miss so many things, y'all.
Mhm.
Like, I'll, like, just be looking at the art.
That was me with Cindy's Patreon
Honestly,
preview.
like, every time I look at, like, I think I was listening when I first listened to Siren, I, like, was a Duke audio or something, and I was just kind of looking at his
Mhm.
his pecs.
Just staring at
Sorry.
you.
And I was like, "Oh wait, lore's happening." Sorry.
I'm supposed to be gremlining right
Focus.
now.
But yeah, just expose myself. Sorry. Um, so yeah, so I guess so then that definitely adds to the theory of like she could be half. Or like she could have like grown up around half, vampires or lower class vampires
Yeah.
before she was adopted. That's why like people having a pitying opinion of her. Well, yeah, she had to live with the,
Uh,
half I don't know, the half I was to say half breed. That's so rude. Oh my god. Like
oh
basic I'm sure that's what
gosh.
they call them. Yeah,
That's
but she
probably
had to
what
live
they
with the
say,
half
yeah.
breeds. Oh, it's so terrible for her. Like, dang. Okay.
Mhm.
Yeah, seeing the viewpoint in Noble is frankly upsetting to the rest of vampire high society. Although she's oh my gosh. Although since she's the third daughter, it's very unlikely she'll be leading the house, and since Egret is a more concerning issue, she kind of flies under the radar in comparison. Oh my gosh. Yeah, we have
Mhm.
like not an atomic bomb, but like a very unpredictable being versus someone who's a bit of a dreamer.
Yeah.
Priorities, y'all. I guess they can. We don't really know their dynamic. I mean, we know that they get along. Sisters, I'm talking about, but like, they don't seem
Yeah.
very close.
Sisterly.
I don't know what I think anymore.
What do I think?
But yeah, no, I think Egret could do a lot more. I think she has. I
Mhm.
think whatever efforts Dahlia makes, I think Egret could also. She could take that and run with it because of her
Yeah.
standing with society, right? Like, no one's gonna mess with her. Lillian, trusts her. I don't. Well, we don't really know their relationship with their mother. Like,
Yeah.
I'm sure that it's like, this is her kid, and also she's, people are afraid of her and they don't want to mess with her. So if she says something, they're gonna be like, we might not be happy with it, but we're not gonna say anything about it. No.
Mhm. Yeah, the only like not tip, what is it? Like lore bit that we've been given kind of about Lillian was like I remember like Sparks posted like that gif with like Mother Knows Best, but she was like Gothel but not bad. And I was like, okay.
What does that mean?
So like she knows what's best.
Seeing the future,
Uh,
fortune telling, please. She can see the
Fortune teller.
future.
She is a fortune teller.
The next one. What's the next question? Oh, blood
Um
purity. If you want to, you can go into that one.
okay, so class system, like 100% pure blood. You're top of the top, cream of the crop. Um, top of the food chain. Can I have any more phrases?
I think you
Um,
use them all.
um,
All the phrases.
used them all. And so like nobility is within like the 80% range. Middle class 60 to 80, and anything lower is just low class.
Garbage.
Like that's it. You're garbage. No. um, and then turned vampires' place in society is usually determined by the vampire who turned them. As the stronger the vampire, the stronger the turned vampire will be, and all the harder to control in the beginning. Um, and thus why Egret is such a special case. But yeah, and then like a little bit more about turned vampires, because like I asked the question about like, so how common is it for people to be turned? Because I feel like if it is such a bad thing, they probably have a rule. And then Sparks was like, yeah, it's basically like you're not supposed to do it unless you get like permission. And like if you're like Lillian, you could do whatever you want. So I feel like that's the big stuff from the Q&A things.
It's all like, yeah, that hasn't been like repetitive. All the stuff that hasn't been repeated. Oh my gosh.
Oh, and then one of the, so I was just looking at throughout like all the copy pasted Q&A stuff. I think I had asked what the relationship Dahlia has with her mother, and then that's when it was revealed that like Dahlia was adopted, at least to us in chat. Like, you know, that was when we learned like, oh, she is adopted, and her buth mother. God,
Buth mother.
somebody help me.
We're doing our best, you guys.
Her birth mother is dead. Okay. That's what I wanted to say. So she's no longer alive. That's what we know. Hence why she got adopted. If that wasn't clear. Oh my god.
It's okay. Made it through.
Yeah, that's all. Okay, I'm just gonna move on because he died.
It's fine.
So that was the Q&A stuff. Do you want to do language of flowers next?
I forgot about the flower thing.
Get your notes out.
Okay. So we have a bit, you guys. It's not a bit, but it's like a moment. We had like a self-indulgent thing.
Yeah, so Spark has constantly talked about the whole use of language of flowers. If you don't know what that is, that's like a, I think, Victorian type of thing where they would use flowers to send different messages, you know, without writing. Like, it would mean something. Like, a lily would mean, like, a white lily would mean death or something. I don't know. Actually, nope, that's not what it means. It means something else because we'll talk about that. But you get what I'm saying.
I looked it up.
Flowers indicate
some of these things
some
are like,
kind of
I'm
thing.
like cross with you, or like I've forgiven you. And I'm like, that's so deep.
Mm-hmm. She really likes to use that in all of her series, but specifically it's used a lot in like the series that involve people in Varia because of the continent. They actually use the language of flowers for like hidden messages. And so she's used that. And as you have heard from the names of the girls, they have like flower or plant-based names, so they have meanings. So before we go into that, we were like, oh, we should pick a flower for each other.
It's so corny, but we're allowed to
Like-
be because it's our show. So if you don't like it,
Yeah,
too bad.
we make the rules. So we gave ourselves an assignment, which was to pick a flower that we think best fits the other person.
You can't make decisions, so there are two.
That
kind of mean the same thing.
Yeah.
Just letting you know.
Okay. I'll go first. Okay, so it took a while to look through all the flowers and their meanings because some of them have different, like you said, some of them have different meanings. Like it'll be like, oh, it means they're strong, but it also means passionate love, and I'm like, that's not what I'm trying to say. Yeah. So I ended up going with honeysuckle because
I forget what the flower looks like. I do not have a green thumb. Like I straight up like I have a, what are you? Like an aloe vera plant or something here. And I haven't watered it in a while. I really should do it. I'm not the best with plants. So this was very difficult for me. Oh, it's pretty. Oh my god.
Okay, so I picked honeysuckle because it symbolizes devotion and everlasting bonds. So breaking that down, devotion is clearly your devotion to the Rex Redemption Squad and to getting Rex that redemption.
Loyal to a cult.
Yeah. And then the everlasting bonds. I feel like this friendship has been really great. And I just wanted to say that.
Bro.
And also, just like a honeysuckle, you are so sweet.
Oh my god, shut up. Can't. What? That's so nice. This is like how I react to things also like over Discord. I'm just like talking to myself like, what? No. What? Oh, that's so nice. Bruh.
You good?
Yeah. Okay. So
Here, I'll make you not emotional in a second because I had a second. Well, okay, this was just one that I found.
Please say I was chives.
This was
chives are useful, and I liked.
No.
What?
You were not chives. You are useful, but well, not useful. That's weird. That's like you're a pen. Like this is useful.
I'm like Capri Sun. I'm useful to the right. I'm useful to certain people.
Oh no! So when I was looking through the list, I kept like I was like looking at each one, and there was one that was called Moonwort, and it equals forgetfulness. And at first I'm like, that's not MD, but then I thought, oh, it's like her forgetting all the audios are gonna upload. Like, oh, there was an audio today.
So y'all don't know this because this is a I every single time anyone uploads an audio, especially Siren, really, because that's the one I listen to. I listen to his stuff the most. I think because it's the most consistent, upload schedule. I'm like an hour late to every single release. I used to be pretty decent. Like now, I just can't. Either have a class or like I just don't think about it. Yeah, and then like I'll like set an alarm if I'm home. Like I'm like, oh yeah, 4:58. Can upload in 2 minutes, and I'll hear it and I'll like just turn it off and like not think about it, and then like 15 minutes later I'm like, audio. And then I go to Peachy every time and like miss the audio release today.
And there is an audio today.
I know.
Just reminding you now.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I thankfully I was like, oh, there's an audio. I remember it because I was looking at the schedule and I was like, it's been 2 days. It's gonna be something. I also am very forgetful in real life, so this fits both ways.
Anyway, for the most part, you are a honeysuckle, but I just felt like it was fun to mention that one because that was my first thought. I was like, oh, it's like MD forgetting when a new upload happens.
Moonwort to the name. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, so there are 2. They both. I was stuck on your creativity because I think that's one of my favorite things about you. You're so creative. Oh. Like, stop! Don't be emotional. No,
I'm not. I am a rock.
So I chose. At first, I was going with Marigold because the funny thing, it's known as the one website. The first website I looked at because everyone else is like, it was so weird. It's known as the Herb of the Sun, and marigolds symbolize passion and creativity. So I was like, oh, that's you. Because also Rex Redemption Squad for life.
Yeah.
And you're really creative. And you're really fun and great. And then the other one, because apparently that was really conflicting, marigolds also had another meaning. Also, it was like toxic. I was like, that's no. Lotus.
Oh.
Yeah. I'm not I don't have that was it. I would like looked up a few things. I was just mostly looking up like hours that align with this. I think you're really creative and fun and great.
Oh, thank you. This was just us complimenting each other.
This was for us.
This is for us. We needed that boost for the day.
Yeah. Okay, back on track.
Back on track. So, okay, language of flowers, as we've talked about. Okay, so you are a honeysuckle. I am a marigold. Okay. But so as you've heard through the characters' names, they all have very plant or flower type names. So we've us lore gremlins or goblins have done our research and tried to decipher what each flower tends to symbolize. So I'll just go through the list. Sound good?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so first we have Dahlia, my favorite. And they symbolize elegance, inner strength, creativity, change, and dignity. They are also known to represent one who stands strong in his or her sacred values, which is very fitting for Dahlia because she's very strong-stead about her whole opinion about humans. Like, she's not gonna let anybody change her mind about that. Like, she's like, we should all work together.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like that fits her. Have Yewen. or in this case, it was when we tried to look it up, we couldn't find it, and Spark was like, "It's a yew tree," and I was like, "Okay, thank you." So basically, a yew tree is a native tree of the Druids, and it symbolizes death and resurrection in Celtic culture. The death part makes sense. Resurrection is an interesting one.
Maybe it's like not rebirth, but like, growth as a person more so. Like maybe through her interactions with what is it, Capri Sun, she'll become a better person. Maybe they'll both be better.
Yeah, so that was that. And then for Egret, I couldn't find anything. I feel like somebody said something, but I never made note of it. So sorry if we missed that, but I couldn't find anything on Egret flowers or anything like that. So if somebody else can, put it in the comments below, because I can only do so much.
White egret flower. Meaning, what is it? Egret flower. Google, are you going to be my friend today? It symbolizes the phrase, "My thoughts will follow you into your dreams." That's not right. Oh, no.
Maybe it's her ability.
Oh, it's
she
the
can
white
see into your dreams.
White egret orchid, maybe? Symbolizes, well, that's innocence and purity, as well as elegance and reverence. Elegance and reverence, maybe.
That fits. And then we have Arbutus, who I feel conflicted about. And then the Arbutus flower, meaning is you are the only one who loves and is considered a promise of love and affection between two loving souls. It's a sign of pure love. So
You sound so not happy. It's a sign
look, it's
love.
pure love.
Your love for Dahlia, I guess, or something. Ugh.
Yeah. Or as he calls her, Dolly.
Dolly Parton.
Oh no, now I need to see her dressed up as Dolly Parton.
Be fantastic. Spark, sing. I only really know Jolene. That's the only Dolly Parton song I know.
Yeah. Sing me Jolene. Sing me 9 to 5.
Oh yes,
Oh,
I know that. I know that one too. Only two.
Yeah. So his name means pure love, which I get. So he loves. Well, okay. So that when I found this, it kind of reassured me that he doesn't mean any ill will towards Dahlia. At least he's gonna make sure she stays safe. And although his means of doing it may hurt other people, I say, looking at myself. But so I guess I'm glad that he cares about her. Yeah.
That's it. That's the only thing.
That's it. Maybe if we talk to him more and he doesn't keep calling us a pet, maybe I'll change my mind.
I don't know if that's gonna stop anytime soon.
I know. But his voice. Also his voice. My god. Can we props to the voice. Who was it? I think it was like Good
Boy Audios or something like that? I don't know.
Good Boy Audios.
I should not be saying that out loud. In this house? Mm-mm.
Yes, it is. It is Good Boy Audios. So, awesome voice. That's all I gotta say.
Awesome voice, but your character sucks. I'm kidding.
Your character sucks. He hurts my heart. And then we have finally we have Lily and White. Obviously probably having to do with like a white lily. Which symbolizes beauty, purity, fertility, transformation, rebirth, and devotion. That's a whole lot of things. But the purity thing stuck out to me, considering she's like, a pure blood vampire, like the highest caliber. So, I feel like that's why it fits. But other than that, I get nothing from that.
Until we, I guess, meet her or find out more about her, we're not gonna really know about how the other ones really.
I just want to hear her talk so I can get a vibe,
Yeah.
Because we don't really know. We don't know what her vibe is. You can tell a lot by how someone talks to you, like Arbutus. Yeah.
Arbutus hate session. Like a hot second.
I have conflicted feelings. Okay.
I mean, valid.
But yeah. So that's pretty much all the stuff we have on like at least breaking down what their names might imply about them. That's pretty much it.
Oh my gosh, we did it.
Should I talk about map stuff or?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, we don't have a whole lot. The map is
I'll just do a quick. Okay, so recently, as in recently, I mean like yesterday, in terms of recording this. Spark was like, I have an old map of Varia. Some of it doesn't match up to what, Varia is now. Like some of it might get cut. I'm not going to show this image because it was a spoilered one. So if you want to see it, you got to join the Discord if you are 18 plus. But so, she showed us this old map that she had of Varia. And so one of the things that we saw was that Lady Grey is in the same territory as, well, not territory, is in the same petal as House White, which is in the third petal. Because, like, you know how, like, in the series, at least in Violet's series, they talk more about the petals. Like, the first petals where we meet Vivienne and, Violet and them escape to. So we learn with the map that probably means that, Lady Grey and Castle White are in the same area within the third petal. And then Dearest is within the fourth petal. And their home, it was just called Dearest Home. It wasn't labeled with like a castle or anything. So that was interesting.
What did she hint at?
I think she was hinting at Dearest.
What else is in the fourth petal?
I mean, there's a castle, which might give us the last name of Dearest, or at least where they belong to, but why is it separate from the castle?
Mm-hmm.
Maybe that's why they're so estranged from their family, like they wanted to leave, because they were seen as lesser than from their own family, so they built their own home separate from the castle, potentially. This is going to be so confusing for people who don't see the map, but I'm not going to show it because you gotta join the Discord for that.
Yeah, it's so confusing. I don't do maps.
Maps are hard. We need a map keeper for Spark's lore.
Gold star.
Where you at?
We have a job for you.
Other than that, I feel like that was pretty much everything that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
If we missed anything, say in the comments below.
Maybe we'll address it next time.
And if you have any theories about our theories, if you have any other theories, just tell us everything you think, okay? Well, I think that wraps up today's episode of the Lore Gremlin Podcast. Thanks for taking the time out of your day to listen to the ramblings of a couple of wacky gremlins or goblins.
Goblins today.
Goblins. Once again, check for links in the description below for Spark's channel and her Discord if you are 18 plus. Any key audios that we mentioned in today's episode, I'll try to link in the description. Stay tuned for the next episode where we're going to talk about... Actually, we've actually made a decision as to what we're going to talk about. Do you think we should we
if
tell
you want to? All right. So we are going to have... The one hint you're going to get is we're going to have a guest. I mean, that's not going to do anything for you, but like... Our first guest on our fourth episode.
I know, it's going to be crazy. It's going to be wacky. It's going to be fun. It's going to be theory-based for sure. So look forward to that in the next episode. Remember to like and subscribe, all that YouTube jazz. That's everything. Thank you for joining our episode.
We're sorry.
We're sorry.
No, we can't steal that from Trophy.
I know.
Bye.